Welcome to Soul Thrive, where we explore spirituality through healing trauma, shadow work, and applying the laws of the universe in order to master ourselves without the fear of the unknown. Hi, Cia. Welcome to Soul Thrive. We're so excited to have you on the podcast. I'm really excited to dive a little deeper in the conversation around image. It's such a big thing in your industry, and I think it's something that you could give us so much context around. I'm really excited to dive into this conversation, but before we do that, please introduce yourself. I'm so blessed that I got to connect with you on so many different levels, so I just want people to get to know who you are and what you represent and so on. So welcome, Cia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I was really excited when you asked me to be a part of this. I think podcasts have been incredible. So this is a really fun opportunity for me as well. So thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Cia Mandarello, and I am a freelance hair and makeup artist. I have been in the industry for 17 plus years. In the last 12 years or so, I've also been an instructor and professor at Sheridan College in the Makeup for Media and Creative Arts program. So it's a good combination of both doing and teaching and lots of different capacities to incorporate both within my career.
Love that. That's so great. So Ivana has a list of questions, and I think she's really excited to dive into this topic around image. Again, not just from the makeup perspective that you do and how you offer, but I think that there's this overall
body image and the focus on the external beauty and the standards of beauty. So maybe let's start with that. So what does the beauty industry look like today, and has it changed? Then primarily, how does it make you feel working in that? Because I work in advertising, so I'll share my perspective later on, but I'm curious to hear your perspective on that and what it feels like to work in this space.
So I think there's been a really great shift in the industry. If we are looking at it from an advertising perspective, what you see as a consumer, as a user of beauty products. I think, when I started in the industry in the early 2000s, there was a very distinct look. And it was starting to shift away from that. But I believe that for me, just the time that I began, there was a very distinct look, size, face shape, face color, and hair type. I think what we're seeing now is a lot more of the diversity and inclusion and a real push for body positivity, a lot less in ageism. We're seeing a lot more models in very different ages, various skin tones and backgrounds and cultures, and really embracing that. As opposed to, I think when I began, the look was a very specific Caucasian, white, blonde, blue-eyed model.
Right.
And that, very thin. And that was the look. And, you see, I am seeing them now, TikToks of all that, what it looked like in the 2000s and what styles look like in 2000s. And, bringing back that kind of fashion and beauty style and makeup. But I think what's also interesting is if we look at the difference between what models look like then and what they look like now, there is a distinct difference. And I personally believe that it's really moving in a more positive direction. So as an artist, when I'm working with somebody and I'm looking at their features, I'm not trying to change them anymore. Whereas I think there was, even in school, there was a correction class where you would have, if you didn't have a perfectly oval face shape or a visible eyelid, there were corrections that you could make. And, that word alone, the concept of correction, means that there is an error.
Right.
If you just think of the language in that.
Yeah.
So if you've got a face shape and, contouring and baking and all of those fun things aside, and the trends and all of that, that's the fun, positive part of it. But if you look at what that meant, what was the correction? Creating a thinner nose to match a specific look, creating a more chiseled cheekbone to match a certain look. And again, trends aside, at the time, I think it very much was to adhere to a very specific style of person. It wasn't trying to enhance what you have. So we look at a trend now, right? Lip enhancement. It's major.
Yeah.
And you look at, the body modifications, injections, and all of that fun stuff that you can do. And I call it fun because it can be.
Right.
But, an overlined lip is very much a trend. Whereas before, I think a nose contour was to fit a certain type of person, a certain look, a certain cultural look. So when you take all of that into consideration and where it has come from and where it's heading, I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's really inclusive and diverse. And we're not even there. We're not even at the full capacity of full diversification and inclusion and really seeing that body positivity. So I think it's a good shift and where it's starting to go and where we're heading. I think especially for the beauty industry and as an artist, it's no longer a point of let's correct this for you.
Yes.
It's a point of let's enhance this for you.
Yeah.
Right. And what's interesting is, so because I work in advertising and I know there's been a more of a push towards showing like your real self and your authentic self, and to your point, to feature everyday people. Even when we look at casting nowadays, it's not like, oh, give me this specific look. The ask is more vague. It's like, you have to just look like the regular person. This is the age range or whatever. And you've seen brands like Dove really like embrace that like natural beauty or like redefining standards. But you know what's so interesting? Because it feels like it's almost like there's this conflict still going on.
There is.
While in advertising, they're pushing for more regular people. On social media, every single ad, first of all, you've got the filters, but every single post or ad I see is, like you said, lip fillers, injections, getting rid of your double chin, face yoga, freaking face gua sha, like 15 different things. And they're all talking about, or did I not send you a post the other day? I don't know if it was you or some other folks. Somebody said, my goal weight is 1 chin.
Oh, wow. I mean, we could take it, I think there's, I guess, to go to the extreme of it, I get why there could be a negative spectrum on it. And I just think that is a conversation around other experiences too. And I think like there is a part of inauthenticity that also leads. However, I do feel like there are more people leading in their realities now with wanting to have more of a fresh face or more of a fresh approach to their image. I know for myself, I mean, I have a hard time still because like sometimes I think because of the way I was raised and like I was a girl that, wanted to wear the heels, want to wear the nice dress, want to make sure that I have the makeup, want to make sure, but I also, like I'm not discouraged if I'm like gonna try Botox or I'm you know what I mean? I'm not gonna not give it a shot if that's gonna make me feel a little better about me. Am I gonna go into the extremes of that? Absolutely not. It's just not my character. But I think I think that there's like that, it's controversial because it can be one of those things where like, where is the limit? And like, I don't know, your industry would know more. And I think that's just kind of how I feel about.
Yeah, because I know I have mixed feelings. Like one day I feel fine, the next day I look at all the ads on social, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to do something because I'd like to look a certain way. So I'm curious, being in this industry all the time, how does this affect you?
I laugh.
It's like the anxiety just went up.
I laugh because I don't think it's it's when did it start, and it's it's right from, I think it's right from the beginning. My initial experience with makeup, and this is the honest truth, my initial experience with makeup was from a very artistic perspective. I found, and I don't know if I've ever told anybody this story, but I was up north with my parents. We were at a flea market, like a true flea market, and there was a book, Femme Fatale. And it was celebrities made up to look like different people, different personas, historicals, dolls. It was Julia Roberts in 1920s kind of Art Deco. It was Julianne Moore. It was all of these wonderful celebrities from the 90s, early 2000s. And it was like finding gold for me. It was this idea that you could transform yourself.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was with the makeup and the hair and the clothing, and the idea of transformation was very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I got into it. And I had, my 3 drugstore products and my my mother's makeup that I stole.
Right.
And we were up north, and I hid in my room and just painted and painted, and it was this purple and black. And I'm sure it was like I looked maniacal when I walked out the room, but I was just so intrigued and proud and excited and really interested in the concept of transformation.
Yes.
And it at the time was very positive and, like I said, artistic. And then I thought, oh, well, if this I can change, then how can I change this? And how can I change my hair color? And how can I change? And then once I think I started into that industry, really started into it after, finishing art and all of that stuff, and trying to find a way of how I can make money in a career in
Right.
being artistic.
Right.
The idea of entering the beauty industry and makeup artistry and hair and all of that was a way that I could make this concept of transformation into a career.
Yes.
And that's when I started to see models and fashion people and fashion industry and the way they dressed and the way they looked. And it was also very critical. There's an idea that Toronto and Canada were very passive in our criticisms and very passive in our commentary. I don't think so.
I agree with that. I don't think so at all.
I don't think so
I think
either.
they're very highly critical. Yes.
And you hear some things and it's, oh, she's just not thin enough. She's not fitting the clothes.
Right.
So I'm in the background and, assisting key artists and she's not fitting this, or he's not tall enough, or she's not the right hair color. And, I've seen models get sent home and models not fit, or we shoot it really quickly and then, okay, yeah, on to the next.
Right.
So you start to see what works and what doesn't. And I think for me, and, working with you, Christina, and doing some of the workshop, I start to see where, for myself, that type of observation or those things you hear or those comments start to internally reflect on myself.
Yes.
And looking at, the idea of self-awareness and, the great podcast you did on confidence and self-confidence and all of that, you have to be, I think, a very strong person.
Yes.
Initially, to go into that and hear those comments and not take it, because it was never intended for me.
Mm-hmm.
It should have never been intended for anybody. But the idea of she's not thin enough, she's not tall enough, she's not blonde enough, or, pretty enough, their face is not translating. You start to think, well, maybe that's about me too. And I internalized it. Now, if we were to look at that, yes, if we go into all of the work that I have been doing and
Right.
starting to do and starting to figure out, yeah, there is background in my life and trauma in my life and things that I'm working through to understand that there's a difference there. And, Ivana, you probably understand, sometimes it's just fitting the concept.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, but I didn't always look at it that way. I didn't take it that way. I didn't separate
Yes.
the criticism. So I think, if I'm looking at it from a personal perspective, for sure, I think it affected me. And, the transformation, I think, then started to accelerate.
Right. Right.
It's beyond the makeup. Now it's the body image, and then the personality and the, cool factor.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts to kind of transcend into all different things. But I think I'm sure I'm not the only one that was affected by that type of criticism and that type of projection and that type of image that was being put out in advertising and beauty at the time.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it's hard to look at that and what it was. And even now, the filters, like you were mentioning, the filters where you see yourself with the, Instagram filter, and it's like, oh, my skin can look like that.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
it's that brings up a whole other thing, right? Like we can even talk about that in terms of personal expectations and what that looks like. So from hearing it maybe backstage or on set, or hearing it from somebody, from, art director, whatever it is, now I'm looking at it from a filter, and
Right.
I'm understanding it from a social media perspective. So yeah, we have this great push and this really positive movement towards body positivity and exclusivity, or sorry, inclusive, the
Yeah.
opposite,
Yeah. Yes.
inclusivity.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And getting rid of ageism and all of that. But I think, on the contrary, in the contrast of that, you're seeing social media present you something different, something that is very familiar to me, that I used to see in the 2000s in magazines and things like that. So I think it would be naive to believe that you're not affected by it.
Mhm.
And I think, in doing some of the work, there is a nice exit to that, where you don't internalize what you're seeing, and your self-imposed expectations become more realistic, understanding that there is fun in that
Right.
transformation, kind of going back to that childhood
Yes.
feeling that I had.
I also think too, the industry as well, I think that they're so emotionally disconnected from what the trauma actually is. So like, I think that we have to also remember sometimes that it's like they have a vision in mind, right? And so
Yes,
like it's an
yes,
art. And so
yes,
it's not just so much about I'm critiquing the fact that you can't fit into this, or I'm critiquing the fact that your hair color isn't that. There is an element of like, I have a vision, and because I have a vision, I want that to be executed in a specific light. And I can understand that from like a business perspective. I can understand that from a art perspective. But I also understand the psychological and emotional damage it does to the person who's expecting it to be an emotional experience. And so there's like that conflict, right? And then add your own energy into the experience, where you're coming in, you want to have that element of joy, and then you're hearing the person with the vision have that criticism or that mindset, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to internalize this now, because my rejection wound is leading, and like my trauma response is leading, and I get it. And so I think being able to kind of, maybe, do you do that? Do you separate that sometimes? You're just like, this isn't about good or bad, and it's like, it's just the industry, and like I have to kind of push through and get the vision done, I think. And does that
yeah.
bring you joy, or is it more of a conflict?
No, I would definitely say it's not a conflict. I think, the more experience I had and the years went on, and the more mature I became too, and understood the business behind it and the vision behind it. And I mean, at the end of the day, they're selling something,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're selling a lifestyle, you're selling an image, you're selling a feeling. So with that in mind, and starting to recognize that, it definitely became a lot easier. And the artistry part of it, that's absolutely what brought me joy. It still brings me joy. It's still the best part of it, is that excitement, the transformation, the before, the after, um, seeing, how shapes can change and facial features can change, and all of that, I think is really good. But yeah, I absolutely much easier to separate it. Especially because, it's my work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
curious.
and
Go ahead, sorry.
no, I was gonna say, sometimes it's great to leave your work at work. Don't bring it
Yeah.
home.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
And I'm curious, what's your most favorite part of your job?
There have been, so throughout my career, I've been really lucky to have incredible experiences. Um, I've met celebrities that I've stayed in contact with, that have had connections with, um, and then you get to work on them. So while you're working on them, there's kind of this trust that happens with
Right.
my client trusting me, and seeing the final results of them trusting me and they're happy with it is really exciting. It's a bit of a high. It's
Right,
like, yeah,
right,
you
yes.
like it. I did it.
Yeah, for sure. It's a little bit of that dopamine hit. You're like, oh, yes, I got it.
Yeah. Yeah, there is for sure. You see your work and you see how it looks. The first time I ever had something published in a magazine was just an incredible feeling. An
Right.
incredible feeling. There's a sense of accomplishment. There's a sense of seeing your artistry. There's a sense of legacy, something you're leaving behind.
Mhm.
So there's all of that. I think that's probably the best part is seeing the creativity and artistry create something tangible or evoke an emotion or create a trust or a friendship. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
So I think connection is what you're referring to. It's like that element of being able to connect not only through your joy, but through the experience of making something really beautiful out of the experience. And then, like you said, leaving a legacy behind. I think like
Mhm.
that is also, I think we all want that at the
Mhm.
end. We always want to leave
Mhm.
something, a little part of us, just to kind of like, I made a mark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
I like that.
you said something in the beginning about transformation, and I wonder if it's when your clients come to you and then when they trust you, and then it's almost like you show them an aspect of themselves. You show them that they can be beautiful, or you allow them to see themselves in a different way.
Mhm.
'Cause I've only had like a handful of experiences with a professional makeup artist, and I was like, wow. It's like you walk out of there like feeling like a different person,
Mhm.
but like better, more confident because like it's almost like they've helped you see yourself in a different light, and it's like no difference than what you do in your work about
Mhm.
helping people see themselves in a different way from a different perspective. So I think there's a bit of a connection there.
Yeah, for sure. I try at least.
Yeah,
Right.
you try. Yeah, I'm not everybody's
Right. That's
artist.
not, it's not
I'm not
everybody. It's not
everybody.
for, right. Exactly. Like you could relate to this, Gia, I'm sure, where you're like, I try my best. And sometimes it's like you nail it, you get it, they get it. We're on the same page. This is fantastic. And then other times it's still something that we have to work together to figure out what's gonna make you happy and how we're gonna work together as a team for that end result. So yeah, for sure. I mean, that works both ways, I think. But
Mhm.
yeah.
I think that's a big part of it too, is making those, like you said, connection is the word. I think that's the word. You connect with your clients, you connect with your team, your photographer. Um, if you're working with a private client, you connect with them, and maybe my style isn't for them. And
Right, right.
I think that's a very important part of it too, is understanding that what I can give and what they can give is both. It's a, oh, how would
I
I
get
put
it.
that?
I know. Well, I think there's just like a relationship dynamic that's being built, right? And
Yeah.
I always say too, for me, I'm not for everyone, right? We
Yes.
shouldn't
Yeah.
be for everyone. I think this idea that we're supposed to provide and be for everyone does not work, because then you're abandoning parts of your own talent or your own gifts. And I think that this is where I go into like a little bit of the spiritual element of there being enough for everybody, because like your industry is like saturated. My industry is, there's so much, and we can go into comparisons, we can go into the feeling of being rejected. You can go into so many different elements when it comes to why didn't they like me and why did they pick me, right?
Mhm.
Or oh my God, why is it that, I said that and I offered that to that person, but now they're promoting somebody else in that process and whatever else. And it took a long time for me to register. And like, this is over the years of being emotionally intelligent and being emotionally aware of myself, to be like, oh, well, this is the process and I cannot be for everyone, because what I have to offer is for a specific niche or for a specific person. And I rather honor that than me try to be liked by everybody or feeling accepted by everyone. I think there's a respect. I think your industry too, I'm sure, Cia, you feel that there's a level of respect and understanding for your craft, but you may not be the right person for that job. And you may be
Absolutely.
the best version of whatever it is for that job. So it's very interesting. I think like as you develop your craft over time and the better you get at it, the less you start to take things personally, I think, through the process of that.
Mhm.
right? And it feels good. I think it feels like there's more of a grounded type of process in that. And I feel like through that, and like there's more inspiration and creativity that comes out of it. Just like I'm just speaking from my own perspective. I can't put words in your mouth, but I'm sure maybe there's an element of that inspiration and understanding that part too. I don't know, by being more grounded through the process.
There is. I mean, starting into the industry, for me, I was an assistant and I assisted multiple incredibly talented, successful, huge key artists. And I think part of me misses that because you really see someone else's creativity and artistry and skill. And it's not like, oh, I'm stealing their techniques or anything, because the minute I tried to recreate something they did was when it was horrible.
Yes.
I remember doing this crazy pin curl and wrapping the hair, and I was like, oh, I saw, so and so do this. This look amazing, and it was a disaster. Photos, and I was new. I mean, I was probably a couple of years into it and doing a creative on the side, trying to build my portfolio. And it was those experiences where I recognized, luckily, very quickly, that I had to find my own style, my own footing, my own version of my artistry. But I think that's really what makes it so beautiful, is that if everybody's piece of art on their wall looked the same, it would be boring. It's a silly cliche to say, but it makes sense. So I think that's exactly it, is understanding that I'm not everybody's artist and my style is not for everybody. But it's not a way of looking at it in a negative. I think it's a positive. Like, this is what I have. This is my special talent, my special technique. This is what I can create. And when you find the right team and the right client, or the right, photographer to bring out the light and stylist to bring in the clothes, it is like, I get really excited.
Yeah.
And I'm a very expressive person on set as well. So I get really excited, really into it. Like, yeah, we're nailing it.
Yeah. That's great.
So I think that's part of it, is knowing that you're not going to be everybody's perfect artist, but that's the point. You shouldn't be.
Right.
You shouldn't be. You should find the right person to work with, the right team to work with, the right client. And that when that hits, it's stunning. It's stunning.
Yeah. I get that. I get that feeling. I'm sure you get that too with your work. When you've executed something, you're just like, oh yeah, we nailed that. That feels so good. But there's an enthusiasm with that, and there's a lot of joy in that.
And it can only come from a place of self-acceptance, because I know when I was focused on perfectionism or doing things a certain way, it never comes out right. But then when you start to trust yourself and accept yourself and really put your own creativity out there without worrying about, is it going to look like whatever the latest trends are? That's when like your own authentic gifts can actually come out. And I like something that you said even earlier about, even as you're working with different clients, you're not trying to make them fit a certain look. You're just bringing out their own natural beauty and accentuating the things that they are working with, and maybe minimizing other things, but not to an extent where you're like correcting, right? It's not about that. It's about enhancing, and it's almost like bringing their own authentic self, like giving them a transformation so that you really bring out their best features out, which is how I've been trying to approach makeup lately. Because I can't, the tiger face and all that stuff. Like, we joke about this because I have a few girlfriends who are like really good. I'm like, I can't for the life of me figure out how to do it. I don't have the time. I don't want to do it. So it's like, what are the features that I just want to accentuate? Instead of trying to like do the whole
contouring is, I mean, I've embraced, I think, a little bit of the bronzer. I mean, I always was a bronzer girl. I liked wearing my bronzer even back in the day, but I've
very 90s.
Right? Yeah,
I wasn't gonna date it, but yeah,
But
Vana
it
did
is,
say that.
but it is, but I use it still to like, not as like bronzer in that sense. I use it just to contour a little bit. Like I use it as like, just like a little highlight here, or a little something there, or a
Little
little brush
warmth. It
there.
brings warmth. It's
Yeah,
warmth to the skin.
but
Yeah.
I still like using it.
But there's still, I went to Sephora.
Well, why is that a
The
bad
whole
thing?
store
Why are
line.
we?
I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, I never used to pencil in my eyebrows because like we didn't have eyebrows back then in the 2000s.
Yeah, oh my God, no.
Right? Like, and don't get me started on that because my eyebrow lady actually botched my eyebrows, but that's besides the point. And they never grew back the way that I did, right? So I had to learn through like tutorials. Thank God we have YouTube now.
Yeah, you
to
work
like
with what you have.
be able
Yeah.
to even do that, because I didn't know how to do that. And like that made me feel good. And like you say, if you're going to use a few little things that you're going to highlight, that's as far as I know I could do. I highlight my eyebrows, I can put some eyeliner on or mascara, and that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the way maybe to get that balance of, I like what I have. I've done the work. I've accepted myself. So I'm just
Yeah.
going to enhance a couple of key things instead of worrying about looking like everybody else. Like I don't want to look like Kim Kardashian, right? There was one point where everybody just, it was that same style of makeup and the
Yeah.
same fillers and the same like cheeks and lips. And it's like, forget it. Do I do Botox? Yes, I do.
Yes.
It's cool, but it makes me feel better. I don't overdo it. I was telling her last week, I'm like, I need to record a video tomorrow because I just did my upper lip. I did a little bit. I did a little bit of a filler, but it makes me feel good. But it doesn't look like you don't see me and you were like, oh, I didn't even know you did it.
No, I mean, I grew up in a line of estheticians. So my whole entire, like my mom for 20 years was an esthetician. My aunt ran her own business. She was an esthetician. They were like top notch in the 80s, right? And she ran her own business. So I grew up in an industry too, where there was like, I did facials when I started facials when I was like 11 or 12 years old. So like skincare products, all of that, there was a very big emphasis of like your skincare. It's much different now, obviously, with dermatology, laser and other enhancements and stuff. But like I grew up where, it was like natural beauty is the beauty that you should operate as. Do I believe it right now? And do I want to enhance other parts of me? Sure, I would. I don't see an issue with that, but I do love good skincare products. I do love putting an emphasis in making me feel good. And maybe it's a little bit of like the nostalgic too, because like that was something that I did with my mom and I did with my aunt. And like, that's how we kind of created our own connection through image. And so on and so forth, right?
But it feels like the underlying focus is self-care versus I gotta look a specific way.
Yeah, I think
I think there's both. I think there's both there. I think the self-care is huge. I mean, skincare now is a big factor into beauty and skin prep and all of that. And even before we hit, injectables and Botoxes and things like that. It's all of it. It's prepping your skin, taking care of your skin, and how that makes you feel. But I think all of that still lands in a transformative area, because it's an enhancement of, yes, what you already naturally have, but having good skin and seeing your skin looks good makes you feel good. Putting on a little bit of extra lipstick makes you feel good. And I think it doesn't have to be like I always think of those 90s daytime talk shows where it's like, and now the reveal.
Yeah, like a massive,
they would come massive reveal.
But I grew up watching those. I grew up watching all those shows.
Yes, it was my favorite. It was my favorite. I was like, yeah, let's see what it is. And but the transformation doesn't have to be that big. That excitement and joy and happiness and that feel good moment can be from a small transformation. If you think back, like historically, and I'm talking centuries, you had makeup in Egyptian era, you had makeup in Roman Empire, and we're going era by era by era. There's a look, there's a trend, there's an idea, there's a concept. And I mean, like I said, way back from the Egyptian era, you have 12,000 years ago, they found mummies with piercings and tattoos and, you know,
Right.
not modern versions, but the concept of enhancement, right?
Yes.
Body modifications. It's been around. So if you think about it from a psychological perspective, and I have zero education in psychology or anything like that, so I'm not going to speak beyond my knowledge. But if you look at it from even an experiential perspective,
Mhm.
doing something to change your appearance in what makes you feel good, I don't think is a bad thing, right? So you're saying, oh, my lip was done, or the Botox was done, injections, or any of that. I don't think it's a bad thing. If what you said, Ivana, was really important, is if it's true, I think, to your authentic self
Yes.
and what makes you feel good authentically. You know, you look at, like I said, the history of it. So there obviously is some sort of excitement and fulfillment that comes from doing these enhancements, adjustments, changes, transformations. You know, it becomes, I think, problematic where you don't have an end point,
Right.
where you don't see like the final result making you feel good.
That
You know,
usually
that's, I think, where
falls into a little bit of a body dysmorphia, where you're looking
exactly,
at
exactly.
the image and it's distorted, and it doesn't matter how much you do, and it doesn't matter how much you put in effort or even hire people to help you enhance those things, it's never enough.
Right.
And so, yeah, I've seen, I mean, in the work that I've done, I get both perspectives so well, because I've just worked with so many people, especially with regards to just like, no, there's nothing wrong with you wanting to take care of yourself, self-care, love, and all that, to the extreme of like, there's a problem here, we have to stop. Like,
Mhm.
you're not seeing you, you're changing you to the degree where
It's not you anymore.
well, no, it's more than just that. It's actually like the image that they're seeing in the mirror is so distorted that they never really knew who they were to begin with. There was no idea or concept about them, and it wasn't fully formed, right?
Mhm.
And so it can go into the extreme of it being something detrimental. So I think like approaching it from that authentic space matters. And I think like how you're communicating, Cia, where it's like so important for you to be like, it's a small little transformation that brings you joy, but then obviously not falling into the spectrum of something else, right?
Mhm.
Actually, it was so funny because, not funny, but you know, Sarah Jessica Parker, like when she came and did Sex and the City Part 2, when they did that, and then she got like blasted all over social media of like not looking her 110% best, but it was like, but she looks age appropriate. She looks age appropriate. Like she's still a beautiful woman. It like looking, and she knows that she's watched a recent interview. That's why I'm probably using this as an example. But it was like, she's like, well, maybe I missed the point of where I was supposed to get like a facelift at a certain point because I'm a celebrity and I'm supposed to do these things to keep me looking youthful, because we also have the psychological part of us, and we all do this. We have an image of where we thought we looked the best,
Like
or
what age?
at a specific age or at a specific point in time, and it stays in our mind. And then we try to emulate that over and over and over again, that we're forgetting that there is this beautiful unfolding and transformation in ourselves as we get older.
Mhm.
And we're forgetting that, you know, and there is this thing too, and maybe I'm wrong, Cia, maybe you could tell me. I think like, it's like the reverse. It's like the older you get, the less makeup you need. I don't know if there is a truth in that, but I've heard that the older you get, wear less than you did when you were younger. I don't know if that's a truth or not, but yeah. So Sarah Jessica Parker was talking about, I missed the boat, but is it so wrong that I'm at this point in my life having this experience and just being me and looking like me? Just because as a viewer too, we've seen her in a specific light.
But
And
20 years ago.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like, but think about that
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
We do that. We hold on to the memory or the concept or the idea of someone's image. And we sometimes can't get over that part of them to be like, well, they're no longer this version. So I think like there has to be an acceptance of where we're at too, where we're saying to ourselves, I'm no longer that version. I'm at this point in my life. So to go back to ask you that question, do women need less as they get older, or does that matter? Or I don't know.
I wouldn't say it matters. I think there is a preference. So as a makeup artist, I will do a very different application style to a 20-year-old versus a 50-year-old. The techniques will be different. The products I use will be different. Skin products will be different. Skin prep will be different. And it has to do with the physicality of the face.
Right.
You know, lines and creases and shapes and even just the elasticity and porosity of the skin. So, you know, an older skin, more mature skin tends to have more dryness to it. So even just the product selection I will do, skin prep will be different. But I don't think it matters in terms of how much you want to wear or what you want to wear. Because again, I think it falls back into that personal aesthetic.
Yeah.
I have put a full face of makeup on 60 plus client,
Right.
and they rock it and they love it. And I think there has to be that personality that matches it.
Right.
If I was to do that on somebody who is not comfortable with that aesthetic, it would look heavy. And I think it goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier, is that the style has to match the client. Because a 20-year-old might put on a heavy, you know, 20-year-old Jenner kid looking makeup. Kylie.
Kylie Jenner, yes.
And she might put on that makeup, or, you know, he might put on that makeup style, and it might not feel right. And I think as soon as it doesn't feel right, it won't look right.
Yes, that there's a truth in that. Yeah.
There really is. And I have put on, you know, the same application style on one 60-year-old to another 60-year-old. And if they don't have I wouldn't say it's even confidence, if it doesn't suit them and their personality and their aesthetic, it looks wrong.
Right.
It just looks wrong. So if I've done, you know, and I have done a heavy, beautiful, like full on smoky eye on a 60 plus, and she looked banging, just rocked it. If I was to do that to my mother,
right,
who's, you know, 60, sorry, mom.
Yeah.
If I was to do that to her, she would look bonkers.
Yes.
It would crush her self-confidence, and
Right.
she would just be like, oh, so you wouldn't even have the energy to carry it.
Right.
So I wouldn't say that it
That's why you
matters.
said that, the energy to carry it. There's a
yes.
like, yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes, you know, I have tried, like, even now I find I was a diehard smoky eye, 90s grunge, just the heavier it is, the happier I am. I didn't leave without bottom liner and smudge mascara. Like, if it was Courtney Love or Drew Barrymore,
Oh, but I could see you pulling that off. But do you see what I mean? I could see you pulling that off.
I loved it. I loved it. But the funny thing is if I was to do it now, and I really do, I'm always like, oh, let me pull it back just a hair. And I think it's because I don't have that energy.
That carefreeness, maybe there's that element of just like being carefree. I think when we're younger, carefree.
Yeah. And I also mean energy. Like, I am tired, and you need that bit of like, you need a bit more of that. I slept 15 hours till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm going out tonight. I'm going to rock my 90s, you know, black eyeliner, and it's an energy. It's a real energy. I don't have that.
And do you find that as you age, then as you change, like you probably embrace different looks too? Like, I find that my makeup has always been, has evolved over the last few years. Like, I used to do, like, to your point, first we had the slim eyebrows. Then up until 3 years ago, I would get them waxed all the time, but they were like thick. Now, I don't know if you can see, I actually grew them out completely.
Oh, okay.
They
look great. I mean, I wish
but they're different. Like,
that's not gonna happen.
I just do it so I don't have like the unibrow, but like it's all grown. And I'm like, if you told me that 3 years ago, I would have been like, are you kidding me? As soon as I would see one come out, I would be like plucking it. So it's
But I think but that's part of it, like the transformation. It's not just transformation is that trend. It's a personal transformation. It's an emotional transformation, energetically. It's all of it. Now, I mean, I don't wear foundation. I don't. I put on a blush, and if I'm doing a look, and I'm my 40th birthday, I did a look. But I had the energy for it. I had the
Right, right.
wasn't tired. But I think that's part of it. As you enter a new part of your life, I had kids, I didn't have enough time. I'm teaching more, so I'm looking at the way I'm presenting myself and the way that I want to put whatever image I want to put forward. I think that all plays a factor into it. So, and bringing it right back to the beginning of the conversation, I think there is such a positive movement in the beauty industry where brands are recognizing that if I'm a 60-year-old woman and I want to wear a black smoky eye, I'm going to give you a product for that. And
Yes.
it's smart.
It's
smart.
definitely more diverse in that way. I do agree with that.
Yes.
I actually was recently in Sephora, and like I'm a tinted moisturizer girl. I don't like foundation. I don't like heavy foundation unless I'm going to an event or unless I'm going to do something. And so for me, it was hard to fight because like I'm like the energy, right? You talk about the energy component. It's like I don't want to put on all the skincare and then put the sunscreen and then can I find a product that has it all together? And there are products that do have the moisturizer, the tinted aspect of things. Yeah.
I wonder how she walks into Sephora. What brand is pulling me?
No, I spoke to someone there because I legit was confused. I was overwhelmed with the amount because it wasn't like that when we were younger. You're laughing, but it was making fun of me.
A little bit. Can I not do that? It's just funny. Christina in the 3D world. That's a whole series.
Oh yeah, it's very interesting me navigating through my life. However, it is one of those things where like I walked in and you're right, there is a product made for everyone. There is something for everyone. That wasn't the case before.
Yeah.
No, you would read magazines. I mean, Cosmo and Allure and everything, and there was always like a guide to something, right? There was a guide. There was a day to night,
right?
Which I always think is really funny because I don't think ever in my professional career have I ever gone day to night. I always go home. So never got to use that guide. But it was, what to wear on your face over 40 or what to wear over 50. And there was kind of these rule books and guides to it. I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't. I think it's really self-led. I think it's really kind of what, as an artist listening to my client, what their lifestyle is, what their aesthetic is, where their comfort zone is, and then take that and push it just a little for that enhancement.
Right.
That transformative feeling where you feel good. It's you, but better. It's you, but my good day.
It's you with the ring light all the time.
Yeah.
It's you
Me,
with the light all the time.
It's true.
If I could walk around with dewy, glowy skin and a ring light all day, every day, I would be so
Listen,
happy.
there's a product for that, okay?
Okay, we'll find it. Cia, we'll talk about that after.
I love that. I think, if you with a ring light, you with a beauty dish walking around all the time.
Can you imagine?
That's it. And so I think
like that.
Oh
I saw
goodness.
it. Cia, RMS Beauty for sure. The founder was a makeup artist for Victoria's Secret. She's like the best. It literally gives you that ring. I'll take you.
Oh, see, I need to go with Yvonne. Yvonne is gonna take me, hold my hand and walk me around.
I'm like, I love it. But Cia needs to do our makeup one time.
Okay, yes. Oh my God. That'd be fun.
For your
yes.
There you go.
Oh my God, that would be fun. Yes, I would love that if she's, available and she is a busy person too. We can't just be like insert ourselves.
Whenever it works, we'll get on the schedule, girl. Next year.
Happy to. There's always space in my calendar for that. Always space in my calendar.
Yes. Thanks. How are you navigating being a mom and doing this?
Did we just talk about this yesterday? No, I don't know. I mean, it's funny. I've had some somebody on set asked me once, and I was surprised at their question. I'm like, how do you teach and you freelance and you travel and you do this and that and that. So my goal is to do it more positively. I'm setting out to do it more positively. In one of our more recent conversations, I think there was always I know now, there was always a push to do everything at 100.
Yes, Yvonne and I have also had that conversation with Yvonne.
Yes, that everything has to be at 100. This is my most recent discovery. But I think I love all of it. I love being a mom. I really do. I love being a makeup artist, and I also love teaching. There's a joy in all of it. So when my kids were young, I didn't have the energy to be as creative. I'll be honest. And, I'd be on set and I'd be exhausted. And I would just kind of be like, give me the brief. What do you need? I'm going to do it. It's going to be great, but I'm tired. And as of late, I've had more energy. My kids are getting a bit older, and I was on set doing a couple of creatives, and it really just kind of flowed. The ideas flowed, the images came out, they were stunning. I was so proud of the work that we did. And it was in 4 hours. It was not even a big day, like 15 hours and this and that. And the model was into it. And like I said, there was that magic that we created. And it sparked, again, that need to do it. Right. So I think what I'm finding now is that balance is finding when I feel that creative need, when I want that outlet, I take it and I say yes to it.
Yes.
And not every job is great. It's not.
Yeah, no, there's truth in that too. I mean,
and not every job is great, No. There's some of them, I call it, it's factory work. I get in, I do the work, I get out, and everybody knows it's there for a reason. And you need those jobs too. Yeah. But when I get that really fun creative or that really great job, the team is excellent, I get the travel experience, I get a new friendship out of it, it really is motivating.
Yes.
And so finding the time for it, trying to balance it. I'm not great at it. No, gosh, no.
No, I think it's a very interesting. You have to navigate through the process when you have children. It's just, and then you have to reignite the joy because there is that element that children take up so much of our energy and time, and we need to be there and we need to be present, but then we have such a love for our careers and like other emphasis of that too. So it's just a temporary pause sometimes, and then you have to reignite that part of you that was creative. I feel like more people need to lean into that aspect of creativity because they feel more of that sense of fulfillment than it being task oriented or to do or 100 that leading to 100. Yvonne's turning the other way.
It's only 0 or 100.
The new discovery of mine. So I can empathize with that. But I think that was a good point that you made, was the pause.
Yes,
it was the pause, and I think it was okay. Like, I was okay with it. I was happy to take that pause because I was really enjoying the time and energy and new experiences with my kids.
Yes.
And my son is in school full time, and my daughter's only 3, but she's becoming more independent and she's exploring things, and there's a bit more free time for my own experiences and things to experience, my work and my career. And because I think I'm starting to feel that opening and that break time, I'm excited to experience more creativity and bring that in. Before, it felt very conflicting. It was very conflicting. And it was like, well, this is what I want to focus on. So I think pause was a really good word. I think pause was a good word you used.
It's always about 2 to 3 years of a mom and a child in the developmental years that are very key fundamentally. Like, your child really needs you. And so there has to be all of you there. And then once they turn about 3, they're a little bit like, Cia, I'm going to go explore this. And Cia, I've got a good sense of who I am, and I know and my boundaries a little bit better. And so there's a little bit of like, oh, you don't need me to go get that cup for you, and you don't need me to hold your hand there. And You went to the bathroom? Okay, great. So it gives you freedom a little bit. So it's nice. Yeah, the pause is very important, I think, in career aspects of stuff. And then you fall back into it. So anybody who's listening, if you have a newborn or a child, 3 years, and then you're back into things.
Yeah, take a pause. Take a pause.
There's nothing wrong with that. And you're not
That's
gonna
it, yeah.
There's not, I think too, there's an element like when you're in a career such as your own, because as an entrepreneur as well, I think there's a fear that I'm gonna miss out. Like now I have this part of my life and my experiences, my children, and like all my opportunities are gonna be gone if I don't show up at 100. And I'm here to say that isn't true, because if you're good at what you do in your craft, your opportunities are always going to be there. But do you believe in that, or have you struggled with that at all?
I was just going to say, I wish I met you 6 years ago, because when I had my son, I remember telling a client who was a mom too. I was pregnant and she had asked, she said, well, when's the baby due? And this, and I said, oh, January. And she said, oh, okay. Why? Like my immediate, why? I said, well, we're shooting in New York in February. And I said, well, book me. And she looked at me like, what do you mean? You're what? And I was like, no, like inquire. I will be there. We're shooting in New York. I will be there. And she kind of said, no, you won't. Yes. Like yes. And her kids were older, and she'd experienced, and it was such a sweet moment, but she was kind of basically telling me, are you nuts? Do you know what's about to happen? You don't. Yeah. You don't know that, the rug's going to be pulled out from under you and your life is changing in a few months. Yes. And I think, a bit naive to that. Right. That understanding that it will change, and it should change, and it has to change. Mm-hmm. And I was struggling with exactly what you said. I'm going to lose clients. I'm going to lose jobs. I've worked so hard to this point, and then to lose it, I can't. I have to do both. Yeah. And again, it was that struggle with 100. Everything has to be 100. Don't worry, I'll be there. You call me, I'll be on that plane. I just gave birth yesterday, but that's okay. I'm going to show up. It's fine. And I remember her looking at me, and I was just like, oh, well, book me anyways. Just give me a call. We'll see how it goes. And she was like, oh, okay, very kind, very gentle. Yes. But in her mind, she's like, you're nuts. Yeah. It was very eye-opening, because clients I did lose for sure, but the clients I gained were a different type of client. Yeah. And thinking about my schedule, thinking about breastfeeding on set, or sorry, not breastfeeding, pumping, having to pump because I was breastfeeding. And the clients that I had lost maybe weren't, the times or the sets were too busy or too structured. It wouldn't have allowed for that. And I had to say no, or they had to say, you know what I mean? It was just the clients that I lost, I think, were a necessary loss. Right. Mm-hmm. And the clients I gained were more aligned with my needs. Yes. And my requirements as an artist, and basically what I wanted for myself as a mom. Mm-hmm. So longer set days, I would say no. If it was, a 5 or 6 day commercial, I would say no. If it was, one of the clients I said yes to was a celebrity client who happened to be pregnant at the same time that I was, and then brought her son not to set, and I brought my son to set, and it was this really wonderful day. And so I started to realize that the opportunities that I had lost, and I don't even want to say lost, that were basically just no longer for me, I didn't recognize that it was a good thing. Yes. It was meant to be that. It was meant to take a different path. So when I had my daughter, sorry, not operating, sorry, not to interrupt you, but you're not operating from a place of desperation, or a limitation, right? Yes, you're also honoring your craft and your niche by saying, I'm not here, again, it goes back to that concept of, I'm not here for everybody. And I also have my truth and my authenticity and who I am. Sorry, you were gonna say about your daughter. Well, no. When I had my daughter, it was suddenly this, I had that experience, so I wasn't afraid. I wasn't worried. Yeah. And it was a much better transition into, being a mom of 2. It was a much easier transition because I didn't have that fear anymore. I wasn't worried. I knew I'm going to lose a client, but I wasn't afraid.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't worried like, oh, once I get fired, how am I going to get them back? Or once I lose that client, how am I going to get it back? It wasn't so much of how am I going to get it back? It's, well, who's going to be available then once this is removed from my schedule or removed from my circle, my network? And sometimes they come back, you know, and sometimes they do. And it's surprising, but it was a much more accepting process having my second daughter, because I knew if an opportunity changed or if a client changed, I didn't mourn that. I wasn't panicking about it. I didn't freak out like, oh God, they're never going to hire me again. And it was because I had started to see, oh, this will happen. You know, I'll link up with a client who's also a mom, who's also pumping on set, and you know, who's also bringing her kids set, and we can, you know, laugh about it. And, you know, it was a really interesting change and shift. So I think, you know, again, like that idea, that concept of a pause was much easier with my second as well.
Yes. It's hard, I think, your first kid, no matter what the circumstances are. And like we women, we want to do everything at 100, and unfortunately we can't. And we have to find that realistic balance. And we have to find, I mean, I don't have kids of my own, obviously, but I've worked with so many clients, and one of the biggest struggles is this conversation where we're having around like my career, and like I want to move into this direction, and like I still want it to look this way, and like I still want the image to represent this, and I'm like, you can't, because you're growing and you're evolving, and the idea for you to be the exact same way you were when you were 20 is insane. Like,
yes, all of that. Yes. Yes. Even for your makeup look. Why do you want to look the way you did when you were 20? You know,
no,
it's a
thank
new
you.
a new face, new products. I hope you're not using the same things you were using when you were 20, you know?
No, let's hope not. No. But hey, and if you were, no judging.
No, I'm judging. I'm going to judge. Throw it out.
Well,
If it's
you're
more
allowed.
than
You're allowed. You're allowed. You're the professional.
from a hygienic perspective,
Yes.
throw it out.
I am so excited because I know that you're moving in some other directions as well with your work, and kind of you're going to put more of yourself out there in a different way too, which I think is going to be great. So I'm excited about that, but I won't share any information until it's done.
Perfect. We'll keep it a secret. We'll keep it a secret until it's
until
Cia can put 100% into it.
Oh no. She's gonna kill me, I swear.
No, my goodness. No, I'm just being
I know.
me.
I know. Thank you again so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate the conversation, and yeah, I'm excited for all the good successes you're gonna manifest in the next little while.
Thank you. This was so fun. This was so fun. So thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Have a good one, Cia.